Hello everyone, my name is Brianna Reisinger and my presentation today is going to talk about traditional versus online teaching methods. When we look at the similarities and differences between these learning styles, there's a couple important things to remember. With similarities between online and traditional teaching methods, obviously we see kind of the basic structural format of assignments, of exams, of homework, basically all the things that are essential to a classroom environment, being able to test students on their knowledge. These are things that we see similar in both models. However, they may differ in structure. There is still a basis for grades and assignments and discussion posts and whatever the classroom requirements are. When we look at differences between these learning styles, online is very different in the aspect of visual content. Online is very visual, it's very self-directed. The student is going to take the information that they read in the class and do their best to come up with it on their own. They're going to be very visual in their learning, while in traditional, it's going to be very transformational, kinesthetic, and hands-on learning. You're working with lab work, you're looking at all these other sorts of things where you are working with your peers on projects and you're talking to your professor in person. When we look at advantages of traditional style learning, we look at peer connections and support. Being able to, in person, go up to one of your classmates and ask for help, get together with them, go out to coffee. Another good thing, an advantage, is being able to go into office hours or stay extra time in class and be able to get that time that you need if you do need help with something. You have faculty around, you have peers around. But one of the disadvantages would definitely be that you have to attend class in person. This in itself is going to be less flexible to a schedule. You're going to have to really balance what you're doing. It's going to be a lot harder to make sure that you're balancing being in class, doing your homework, and doing all other life activities. Another disadvantage of traditional learning is honestly it's very assignment heavy with projects and getting and meeting timeframes for essays and exams and things that you don't have to worry about as much online because you have such a strict deadline. In traditional style learning, it's hard to balance these other activities. Some of the advantages of online learning are the opposite. You have flexible schedules. It makes it a little bit easier to balance. If you have to go to the grocery store, if you have to do all these other things, you have to pick your kid up from school, you have to do all these little things that help you balance doing school and also doing life. Another advantage would be the fact that it is, like we talked about for the disadvantage of traditional, with online, it is assignment heavy, but it is very flexible. You're able to kind of shift things around. Due dates tend to be more lenient in some aspects or another because you have those technology problems. A disadvantage would be you have a harder time getting those face-to-face peer connections and obviously working with a professor. You lack that real social interaction that is very great in classroom environments. And another disadvantage is obviously technology concerns. If you're not tech savvy, it can be very difficult, but there is good online references and resources to help someone and people who have trouble with these things. But technological concerns are obviously always going to be an issue because you're turning an assignment, sometimes it doesn't work. And so these are some of the advantages and disadvantages of these two methods. When we look at learning theories for these two methods, when I think of traditional learning, I think of very transformational learning. And I think this because this is what I want to bring into my classroom. And transformational learning can be very different, and you can bring in so many different aspects and help a student grow with opinion, habits of mind, and all those things in person. And you can be very present for those conversations through a social aspect. When we look at online, we see very self-directed learning, very auditory, very I'm going to read this or I'm going to listen to this, and I'm going to have to try to identify it myself and figure it out. While this can be brought to a traditional classroom setting, we mostly see this online because you are very, very self-independent in an online course. Unless you reach out or have a problem, it's something you have to talk to your professor or your peers about. And so these two learning theories are what I mostly see in traditional and online learning. It is so important as a professor or a teacher in general that you're bringing an equal environment to whatever class classroom you teach, whether this is online or traditional learning. Some of the ideas I was thinking about specifically for a biology teacher is when you're working online, some of the best things I did in my undergrad were have professors, when I was doing through COVID, having them post actual online videos of themselves talking through something, somewhere where I could pause, somewhere where I could actually see their face, their visual expressions, and they would write on the classroom board. They'd give examples without even having to ask. So it's not just your voice, it's not just the or writing or a statement or like a little piece of paper that your teacher's posting. It's something I want to do is, hopefully, if I ever have to teach online, is post videos of my actual self, giving examples on the board for those learners that aren't just all auditory, giving a very good not just visual, but almost a hands-on experience to an online learning method. And for traditional, I think it's honestly important to bring some of that outside discussion post information into a traditional classroom, maybe once a week in the classroom environment. If class isn't feeling like it's a good day, then maybe it moves on to online, and maybe you have your students working on a discussion post, being in a forum together, and kind of giving them a little bit of a break, giving them some leniency, because class and getting to class can be very, very difficult. So these are two of the things that I would really like to do versus traditional versus online, and how to make your classroom a very equal environment, and how to ensure that everyone is getting the same education regardless of the teaching method.